The series begins with a girl named She who dreams of confessing her feelings to the guy she likes. Someone throws a ball at her head, causing her to fall to the ground, and she wakes up frightened to find her mother hitting her with a pillow to wake up because she's late for school. She has to quickly get ready, head to school, and stop by the pastry shop where she normally eats every day. However, she notices a chubby guy who ordered all the food and sits next to him to eat with him, but he refuses. She gets angry and calls him a loser. As she leaves for school, she trips, and both she and the guy fall to the ground. They are surprised to find they have landed on an advertisement sign which sticks to their pants. They try to remove it but fail, and they have to go to school with it still stuck. She tries to hide her face so no one will ever see her. The guy she likes, who is riding her bike, sees her and laughs. When they arrive to school, they go to the locker room to change their pants, but they don't have a pair that fits the guy because he's overweight. A beautiful student named Hania, who is She's rival in class, comes in and feels embarrassed for She. Hania goes to get a pair of pants that fits the chubby guy from the basketball team. The guy thanks her and impressed by her kindness. She, however, is annoyed by this and tells him she doesn't want to see his face again, not knowing that fate will bring them together again. She enters the classroom and tells her friend what happened. Suddenly, the teacher comes in with the chubby guy and announces that he will be in their class. They learn that his name is Young. Young is happy to know that Hania is in the same class, but ends up sitting next to She, and the two dislike each other. They argue a lot, but when She finds out that Young is smart and always ranks first, she changes her attitude towards him. She tries to get close to him so he will help her with exams and homework because she's not interested in studying and always gets the lowest grades. During the break, Young goes to eat alone in the cafeteria, and Hania sees him and goes to sit with him. They chat pleasantly, and Young learns that she likes guys who play basketball. Young then approaches She and asks her to help him join the basketball team. He does her homework to bribe her, and she happily agrees to help him. She prevents one of the team members from going to practice. Later, Young takes the opportunity to approach the team captain, whom she likes, named John. John thinks Young can't play because he's chubby and probably slow. They test him, and Young shocks them by scoring many points and proving himself. John has no choice but to accept him into the team. The next day, they have an important match, and all the students come to watch. Even though She is not interested in basketball, she watches because she likes John and cheers for him. She takes advantage of the break to give John an energy drink she made herself to win his heart. But John is annoyed by it and takes it to avoid hurting her feelings. She feels victorious. As the second half begins, She continues to cheer and makes heart shapes with her hands. She notices John looking at her and thinks he has fallen in love with her. However, he's actually irritated because his stomach hurts from the drink and he leaves the game unable to continue. Young replaces him and decides to take advantage of the opportunity to prove himself and make Hania like him. The opposing team mocks him, but he decides to prove them wrong. The second half starts, and despite his weight, he is quick, jumps high, and scores many points, earning the crowd's admiration. With only 10 seconds left and the match ending, the team passes the ball to him, and everyone relies on him. She and Hania cheer him on, but he gets nervous and shoots from a distance. Unfortunately, he misses and they lose the game. The next day, She feels guilty towards John for being exhausted and leaving the game because of her. She meets him by chance on her way to school and tries to hide from him, but he sees her and approaches her. She thinks he will argue with her, but is surprised and happy by his words. She feels that he likes her and decides to confess her feelings. She has written a letter to give him, but when she reaches the classroom, she finds that another student has found the letter and wants to read it. She gets angry and tries to take it back, but the teacher comes in, takes She away from questioning, and asks who the letter was written for. She hesitates and can't admit she loves John, so she lies and says it was for Young, but the teacher doesn't believe her. Young finds out what happened and decides to help her. He goes to the teacher and says that she actually likes him, which the teacher believes and lets them leave. However, later the principal calls She and tells her to quit the sports club and focus on her studies because her exam grades are poor. She, who is the president of the club, argues, but the principal tells her to either quit the club or he will cancel it altogether. She is conflicted and doesn't know what to do, but then she gets an idea. She goes to talk to John and asks him to be the president in her place. He apologizes because he plays basketball and is too busy. He challenges She to a boxing match, and if she wins, he will take her place as president. John accepts the challenge, and She begins training hard to prepare. The match day arrives, and all the students are excited to see who will win. Meanwhile, someone with bad intentions is filming Hania while She dances. Young sees him and confronts him to take the camera, but the pervert hits him and escapes. John learns what happened and goes to check on Young, telling Hanya that he suspected someone was watching her, which is why he was always accompanying her. Back at the club, she tries her best to win against John, but he doesn't show up on time, meaning he has withdrawn. Even though she wins, she's upset because the students say John did this because he thinks she's weak. She feels discouraged and leaves the club in tears. Young sees her and feels sorry for her. He plays music in a restaurant to lift her spirits. The next day, Young discovers who took the letter from She's bag. It turns out to be a student from their class who's jealous of her. Young finds evidence against her and goes to confront her, threatening to report her to the principal. The jealous student, frightened, cannot deny it and apologizes to She in front of all the students before leaving the classroom. She calls Young to thank him and is impressed by his kindness. They meet in the evening, eat together, and their relationship grows closer, becoming good friends. She notices that Young eats a lot, which is bad for his health. She starts encouraging him, taking photos of him, showing him the pictures and boosting his self-confidence. She tells him that he is handsome but needs to stop eating so much and lose weight to win Hanya's heart and make her like him. Young agrees with her advice. Young agrees to help her with her studies so that she can get high grades, and she helps him stop eating and lose weight. The next day, they start implementing their agreement. She creates a meal schedule for him, specifying the calories he's allowed to consume each day to lose weight, and she takes him to exercise. She forces him to train to get rid of the fat in his body. On the other hand, Young makes a study schedule for her and makes her study a lot to improve the exam's grade. They continue like this for a long time. She forces herself to exercise while he focuses on studying. One day, while Young is training, he sees people playing chess and joins them. When she calls him, he lies and pretends he is running, but she sees him and comes up behind him, pulling his ears and taking him to continue training against his will. She also punishes him. At night, he forces her to study and keeps an eye on her to make sure she completes all her homework. However, when he goes to the bathroom, she puts a teddy bear in her place and goes to rest. The teddy bear falls and Young keeps calling her. When she doesn't respond, he thinks she has fainted and calls for an ambulance. When they arrive, they find her dancing and throwing a party. The next day, Young scolds her for what she did. And this time, they decide to follow through with their agreement seriously so that each one can achieve their goal. She starts focusing on her studies and attending lessons, while Young continues to train and exercise to lose weight. Until the time of the final exam comes. This time, she focuses and successfully solves the question with ease, to the point where the teacher doubts her. But he confirms she's not cheating. She finishes her exams and they get their vacation. She's happy and goes online, but she sees pictures of Hanya dancing that have leaked online. Although she's angry with John, she decides to support her and goes to meet her, reassuring her that she will help. They sit with Young and John to think of a solution to her problem. They come up with a plan together. She disguises herself in Hanya's clothes and sits in the garden to lure the pervert. Their plan succeeds, and the pervert and his friend come to take pictures of her. Young and John are hiding and run after them. She starts fighting with them, using her strength in boxing, and manages to break a bone in one of them. The police arrived and arrest them, and they delete the pictures. Hanya thanks She for standing by her, and they repair their relationship, deciding to be friends. After the vacation ends, they return to school. When the results are announced, she is nervous and scared, but is surprised to find she got the highest grade in the subject she studied for. She is happy and can't believe it. However, she later discovers she received poor grades in the other subject she didn't study for, and she is upset. She goes to sit alone, and Young tries to comfort her, but she is still distressed. She decides to study during the vacation to reach her goal, and he also needs to stop eating and lose weight. When the vacation comes, she starts studying but gets bored and can't continue. She goes out to play with her friends and celebrates New Year with them. She notices that Young is missing and not responding to her messages. She gets upset. The vacation ends and they return to school. On the first day of school, Young arrives and everyone is surprised to see him having lost weight and become the most handsome guy in the school. He enters the classroom and sits next to She, who is shocked and can't believe her eyes. She thinks she is dreaming and tries to avoid him because he succeeded in the challenge while she didn't study as she promised him. He follows her, and when she tries to hit him, he deflects her attack and approaches her, saying that she lost the challenge. They argue, and during the break, She wants to go to the club, but the principal stops her, saying that she can only return once she improves her grades. Later, there is a basketball match with the same team as last time, and all the students go to watch. The match begins, and the team is trailing in points. Feeling that they might lose, Young has to play in the second half, and this time he is more focused after losing weight and gaining self confidence. He scores many goals but finds himself in the same situation with 10 seconds remaining, and the match is ending. He gathers his courage and manages to score a goal in the last second, winning the match and making everyone happy. They continue to cheer. Later, John decides to challenge She to a boxing match. He says that if she can beat him, he will become the club president in her place. The match day arrives, and both are skilled in martial arts, but John is superior and knocks her down, asking her to withdraw. She refuses and gathers all her strength, attacking him with quick punches and eventually knocking him down. She performs her secret move, and John has to surrender. The audience admires her strength, and they continue to chant her name. Young goes to congratulate her, and they celebrate together with many gifts. The next day, they walk together and they agree to work together so each can be with the person they like. She goes to the principal and asks for permission to participate in the running competition on sports day to get closer to John. But he refuses, saying that the competition is only for boys. She gets angry and refuses to give up. She writes a petition and distributes it to all the students to get it approved. When the principal finds out, he gets angry, hates girls, and doesn't want them to succeed. He argues with the class teacher because she defends She. They argue loudly, and no one can stop them. At the same time, Young talks to Hanya to organize the sports day together. He is nervous and feels embarrassed, but she is kind to him and gives him confidence. Later, she goes to the principal and presents the petition she collected from the students to participate, but he refuses, telling her to focus on her studies. Young hears this and feels so bad, so he defends her. The principal gets angry and agrees to let her participate in sports day. Young is upset because he wanted to get closer to Hanya. When he returns home, he keeps thinking about how to apologize to her for not participating in the organization. The next day, Young responds and goes to talk to her. He is surprised when she says she's proud of him for standing by She against the principal. Young is touched by her words, thanks her, and admires her. After the sports day, another student is assigned to organize the competition instead of Young, but he is not well prepared, gets confused, and annoys the principal, who scolds him. The other students arrive, holding signs supporting the girls to participate in the running competition. She is moved by what they did and is happy. She and the other girls continue to chant that they want to participate in the competition. The principal gathers them and scolds them for their actions. But the school president arrives and intervenes. He changes the school rules, allowing girls to participate, and agrees that She can join the competition. The students are thrilled to have beaten the principal and gives her confidence. The race begins, and She starts running, but a group of students tries to hinder her classmates' chances of winning. Young leaves the clinic and rushes to her, telling her to use her strength to push them out of her way. She listens to him and successfully knocks them down, but stumbles and becomes tired. Despite the pain, she persists and continues running until she nears the finish line. She hears her classmates cheering and calling her name. Gathering her courage, she runs as fast as she can and manages to finish first, winning the race. However, she feels exhausted and is taken back to the clinic. Young stays beside her to ensure she recovers, and the next day, she returns to school. She hears Hanya talking to John and asking him to meet after school, which makes her feel jealous. She tells Young, and they decide to keep an eye on them to find out what will happen. After school, they disguise themselves and watch from a distance. They see Hanya approaching John, and both of them feel jealous and run to stop them, only to be surprised that Hanya wants to teach him boxing. They feel embarrassed and pretend to run into them by chance. They take the opportunity to go out together, heading to a toy store. Each one tries to get closer to the person they like, but Hanya keeps sticking close to John everywhere, even when they eat. Young and She feels frustrated and decide to leave. They sit together and focus on their studies. This time, they decide to collaborate with their classmates to support each other and get good grades. Young is chosen to explain the material because he's the smartest among the kids. After school, they study at She's mother's restaurant, and Young helps them, explaining lessons and improving their level. However, she is the only one who keeps making mistakes, which upsets her and makes her feel dumb. Young reassures her, telling her that it's okay to make mistakes as long as she learns from them. She feels better with his words, gains confidence, and starts focusing more, studying longer. Days pass, and the students continue to study together after school. Young takes special care of She, staying up with her to explain anything she doesn't understand until her level improves. She becomes ready for the exams, and the students agree to achieve high grades this year. 3 days before the exams, they decide to give themselves a mock test to check their level. The exam begins and the questions are easy. All the students manage to answer them, but she panics when she sees the exam's paper, leaves the classroom, and goes out. Everyone takes advantage of her action and follows her to find what's wrong. They discover she's crying and saying that she can't solve the questions, even though she knows the answers. Young is touched and tries to comfort her, telling her that she's smart but needs to trust herself. He is sure she will get good grades. She takes Young's advice to heart, thanks him, and promises to do her best to not waste their study efforts. They return to class, where it's revealed that the reason students are focusing on their studies is that if they get bad grades, their teacher will resign. Since they love her, they decided to study hard and get high grades to keep her teaching them. Exam day arrives and everyone begins solving the questions. This time, she is confident in herself and manages to answer all the questions. However, she refuses to review the questions after the exam. John approaches her, asks to talk, and reveals that he discovered how Young lost so much weight so quickly. He explains that Young hasn't been eating anything at all. She is shocked by this information, confirms it with Young, and invites him to lunch. At the restaurant, she notices that he pretends to eat and throws the food away. She becomes upset, starts crying, and asks him why he's doing this to himself. Young tries to deny it, but it's clear he's lying. She understands why he collapsed during the competition. When Young realizes he's been exposed, he feels embarrassed and leaves the restaurant. She follows him, reassures him that she will help him eat while maintaining his weight. And Young is pleased with her words. He can't resist any longer, takes the burger from her, and starts eating. The next day, the exam results are announced. She is nervous but is delighted to find out that she got good grades in all the subjects. As usual, Young ranks first, and all the students are happy and thankful for his help. However, their joy is short-lived because the principal calls Shi to his office, suspecting that she cheated in the exams. She tries to defend herself, insisting that she studied and solved the questions on her own. But the principal doesn't believe her due to her significant improvement in a short time. She goes home crying, telling her family that the principal suspects her of cheating. When her mother arrives at the school, she rushes to the principal's office with all her classmates and defends her. She insists on retaking the exam to prove her success was due to her own efforts. The principal agrees, and all the students encourage her, even Hania, who supports her and gives her a gift. Young helps Shi with the material she finds difficult, giving her advice on how to do well. When the exam day arrives, she feels confident and successfully answers all the questions. When she exists, all her classmates are waiting for her, proud of her, and she reassures them that she did well. The next day, a classmate announces that she has passed with a higher grade than Young, and the students are thrilled, celebrating her achievement. The principal enters and confirms that Shi's success was genuine, but Young and his classmate demand that he apologize for doubting her. The principal, exhausted, leaves the classroom. The teacher then enters and announces that she will not resign, making everyone happy. Thus, their academic problems are resolved. She invites Young to her home for dinner, as her family wants to thank him for helping her with her studies. They prepare his favorite food, keeping track of the calories to manage his weight. After the meal, they sing and dance, spending a pleasant time together, like one big family. The next day, they go to school together and notice that John is absent, which is unusual for him. They decide to search for him and find him alone in the garden, looking depressed. John explains that he's upset because his mother wants him to marry someone after his father passed away. They try to comfort him, and Young offers him to live with him until his relationship with his mother improves. John agrees and goes with him, feeling comfortable at Young's home, which feels like his own. They have breakfast together the next morning like family. They go to school together, and Hania is happy to see John, expressing her worries but is relieved. During the break, students from another class bully John about his mother's upcoming marriage. John is upset and almost fights back, but Young stops him and separates him from the bullies. After school, they gather with Shi and go to help Hania shoot a music video because her dream is to become a singer. The next day, they played a confession game, where each person shares a secret that no one else knows. When it's Hania's turn, she reveals that she has a crush on someone in their class, and she means John. However, John says he's not interested in anyone and is focused on his studies. Hania is hurt by his words, but tries to hide her feelings. Later, she walks with Shi and tells her that she has given up on John and no longer likes him. She asks Shi to get close to him and try to win his heart. She is surprised but agrees to try. The next day, she sits alone at school, thinking. Young notices and asks her what's wrong. She tells him about Hania giving up on John, and Young is happy, seeing it's an opportunity. He suggests that she pursue John, and he will pursue Hania. After school, as they are heading home, they see a competition of the most suitable couples. She decides to enter with Young, confident that no one will recognize them. They are shocked to find out that the host is Shi's father. Young is nervous and wants to escape, but Shi stops him. She goes to Young's house and tries to get closer to John, but he remains distant. Later, Hanya arrives and gives Young a gift, which is the same gift she had bought, but the original one. She feels embarrassed and takes her gift back, but Young goes after her, takes the gift, and expresses his happiness because it was handmade by her, calling it the best gift he has received. They then have a meal with their friends and have a good time. She goes to get the cake but trips and falls, ruining it. Young gets upset and leaves the house. She feels guilty and goes to apologize, but Younger feels that he's not upset about the cake, but has a sad memory associated with birthdays. He recalls that his parents divorced on his birthday, and since then, he has had a complex about birthdays. She empathizes with him and tries to comfort him. When Young returns home, his father greets him with a hug and presents him with a small cake, which John had prepared as a replacement for the ruined one. Young is delighted and thanks everyone. In class, the teacher announces a field trip to a farm for various activities. The students are excited and change into their field trip clothes. They board the bus, and she decides to try to get closer to John. When they arrive at the farm, the supervisor introduces the activities, planning, chopping wood. Young decides to record a video to send to his mother and asks she to help. As he talks, he tears up, saying he missed her mother and wished she could be with him at the moment. She is moved by his words and also tears up. She tries to cheer him up. That night, the students gather around a fire, telling scary stories, singing, dancing, and playing the game of confessions. They comfort Young with kind words to make him feel better. Hanya thanks Young for always helping them and surprises him with a replacement birthday cake for the one that was ruined. Young thanks her for her care, but she says they are friends and it's her duty to do so. Later, she and John go for a walk, and this time he treats her well, and they grow closer. At the same time, Young and Hanya also get closer. They follow each other on Instagram. They all gather at a high spot to watch the sunrise, and it turns out that their teacher and supervisor also came to join them. The view is beautiful. They return to the farm to continue their activities, taking care of the animals and birds. At night, it starts to rain. She goes to check on the chickens, but finds that the eggs have broken. She is heartbroken, having been waiting for them to hatch so she could keep and raise the chicks. She buries the eggs, which she considers to be like her lost children. The trip ends, and the supervisor thanks everyone for their efforts on the farm and their hard work. When she returns home, her mother notices that she's still ill and has a high temperature because she was out in the rain the previous day. At the hospital, she is bored and waiting for Young to visit, but she's surprised to see John instead. He has brought her the food she likes and checks her temperature by placing his hand on her forehead. He is clearly worried about her. She thanks him for his care, and he stays with her, explaining the lessons she missed. It becomes apparent that he has started to develop feelings for her. Meanwhile, Young arrives to check on Chi and feels jealous when he sees her joking with John. He doesn't want to disturb them and decides to leave. When she returns home, she finds that her parents have decorated her room to look more feminine. Her friends visit her, and she's upset because she thinks Young didn't come to check on her. The next day, when she returns to school, John greets her, and it's clear that he is now interested in her. She tries to talk to Young, but Hanya gets to him first and takes him outside the classroom. Hanya is also showing signs of interest in him. Afterwards, Young leaves Hanya and goes to sit next to She, but he is surprised when she asks him what Hanya wanted. She admits to being jealous and doesn't want anyone else to take him away. She also hints that she and John will be going to the club together, which upsets Young. After school, she waits for Young to go together, but she's also upset with him for not visiting her in the hospital. She storms off and bumps into a tree. Young tries to explain the misunderstanding and also tells her he managed to include her team in the school competition, where they will perform a karate display. She is happy and reconciles with him, returning to their previous friendship. Later, she goes to the club to train with her team, and John is there as well. Young feels jealous when he sees them together and decides to leave. On the day of the competition, all the students and parents are present, excited to see the performance. She's team performs a dance routine, mixed with martial arts move, impressing the audience. Unfortunately, she stumbles and accidentally collides with Hanya, causing her to fall and injure her legs. Hanya cannot continue the performance, and her friends have to carry her off the stage. She goes to check on her and apologizes, but Hanya accuses her of doing it intentionally out of jealousy. She is hurt by this, feeling unjustly blamed. Young comforts her, expressing her confidence in her innocence. John is puzzled by the incident since she did exactly what was required of her and suspects someone else might be involved. The next day, Hanya misses school and she feels guilty for causing her injury. The students discuss her and suspect her, which adds to her distress. She and John investigates and find evidence that someone else changed Chi's position, causing the incident. They confirm their suspicions. Meanwhile, a student confesses to Hanya that she was responsible for the accident and apologizes, explaining that she didn't mean to hurt her and wanted to embarrass her because she didn't like her. This student is the same one who previously found Shi's love letter and caused her trouble. Hanya feels guilty for doubting Shi and apologizes for the misunderstanding. The next day, Hanya returns to school in a wheelchair, and she feels guilty and apologizes, but Young reassures her that she's not at fault and encourages her to speak with Hanya. They reconcile and renew their friendship. John accidentally finds Shi's diary and reads it. Discovering her feelings for him, he reflects on their past moments together. The next day at school, he meets her but is nervous and unsure how to act after reading her diary. Meanwhile, Hanya asks Young to go out with her after school, but he declines and avoids her because he realizes that he's not interested in her and his true feelings are for Shi. The next day at school, she asks Young to explain a problem to her, but he's still upset and yells at her. She is hurt by his behavior and leaves, meeting with John during the break and leaving Young alone. Young is upset, feeling that she has abandoned him. Young apologizes, but she is still upset with him. At the end of the day, she discovers that her diary is missing and searches for it. John finds it and returns it to her, and she feels embarrassed knowing he read it. She continues to receive messages from Young and John at night, but she's busy and doesn't respond to either of them. Later, they eat together, but she accidentally puts too much chili in the food. Realizing her mistake, she gets upset and starts hitting herself. But John grabs her hand to stop her and helps her with her embarrassment. They end the day by him dropping her off at home and leaving. The next day, Young and John are surprised to find themselves at Shi's house. When they meet him, Young discovers that he's kind and treats his mother well, and he's happy to see her pleased with him. He agrees with the relationship between John and Shi. At school, the president announces that it's a special day where every student will stand up and confess something they have been afraid to reveal without fear or hesitation. Each student begins to stand up and share a secret they were scared to admit. When it's John's turn, he says he will direct his words to Shi. She thinks he will confess his feelings for her, but she is surprised when he asks her to join him at the same university to continue their studies together. She feels disappointed and frustrated and notices that Young had written a confession note but threw it in the trash and left upset. She is puzzled and feels that Young is hiding something. She retrieves the note from the trash and she reads it at home. She discovers Young's detailed recounting of their memories together, from their first meeting to becoming friends and how he loves being with her. She feels touched by his sincerity and realizes she has distanced herself from him recently. She decides to make things right. The next day, she goes to school and her teacher wishes them a happy holiday. Young waits for Shi outside the school, but he doesn't find her and leaves feeling disappointed. However, he is surprised when she invites him to make up for her absence. She tells him she's not happy with John's confession. Young is pleased and feels his chance to get closer to Shi or change her feelings for John is increasing. As days pass, she feels bored during the vacation and decides to do something useful by attending a drawing course. On the first day, the teacher scolds her in front of the class for not focusing. She is upset and after finishing, goes to meet John at the club. She asks to talk to him, but he is busy. She feels frustrated and leaves, calling Young to complain. Young pretends he has plans with Hanya to make Shi jealous. The plan works, and she is upset that she's going to dinner with John. Both she and John lie to each other, pretending they're having the best time with the person they love. But in reality, they're doing this to annoy each other. The next day, John asks Shi to attend the same university to stay close to him, but she says she will think about it. At that time, Young is trying to convince himself to confess his feelings to Shi before it's too late. However, John calls him and asks to meet, wanting to convince Shi to agree to attend the same university with him. Young is happy that she is refusing and decides to let her make her own decision without pressuring her. The next day, John's mother receives a call from Shi saying John is ill. She's surprised and goes to check on him, only to find the person waiting for her proposes marriage. She is reluctant because she worries about John's feeling, but he assures her that her happiness is what matters to him, and he presents her with a ring and asks her to spend her life with him. She accepts. Later, John takes Shi shopping for a dress for the wedding. When she tries it on, he is mesmerized by her beauty and takes pictures of her, sending one to Young. Young is shocked when he sees it, feels jealous, and forgets about his lecture, causing a commotion. She returns to John and they go to karate training together and practice singing for the wedding. When Young learns of this, he feels jealous and goes to the club to find them but ends up in the wrong room. Witnessing the teacher embracing her partner, he apologizes and leaves, feeling embarrassed. At the end of the day, Young waits for Shi and wants to walk her home, but John arrives, knowing they are going together, and this upsets Young. He leaves feeling sad. Afterward, they reach the clinic, wait for their turn, and she talks about Young, which makes John feel jealous. He asks if she plans to join the same university as him, but she doesn't have an answer. John goes in for his appointment, and Young meets Hanya, who also wants them to attend the same university to stay together. Young is nervous and doesn't know how to respond. Hanya knows he likes she and leaves. After John's appointment break, John learns what happened and takes she out to a restaurant, where he asks her about her decision to attend the same university as him. She apologizes, saying she wants to remain friends, and reveals that she realized she doesn't love him. She admired him at first because he was the most popular student, but now sees they are not compatible. John is understanding and not upset, agreeing to remain friends. The next day, Young learns from a friend that she rejected John and no longer loves him. He is happy and can't believe it. He goes to school and asks to apply to the same university as she to stay close to her. After school, Young tries to make amends with she, giving her a flash drive with photos of her memories and a message about how he believes in her. She is touched and feels his feelings are sincere. She forgives him. That night, Young sends she messages, telling her that he has an aptitude test for the same university she's applying to. The next day, he goes to the university excitedly, takes the exam, and feels confident about his answers. Meanwhile, she has a drawing test and scores well. She rushes out to find Young and check on him, but arrives too late. Just as she's feeling disappointed, Young appears from behind. Having anticipated she would come, they walk together, sharing what they did during their exams, and it's clear they like each other. The next day, she learns that Young's father is traveling and decides to bring food for Young since he doesn't know how to cook. Later, while returning home, she experiences abdominal pain and goes to the hospital. There, she sees Young's father and talks to him, learning that he has a serious illness but has been hiding it from Young to avoid distracting him from his studies. He asks her to keep it a secret until his exams are over. She is moved by his words and doesn't know what to do. When she returns home, she tells her family what she learned, but they ask her to keep it from Young until he gets into university. The next day, she receives her university test results. She and her family are anxious as they open the letter, but she is relieved to see she has achieved good grades and only needs to graduate from school. Her family is proud and they celebrate together. The next day at school, Young learns of her success and is thrilled. He has prepared a surprise for her, showing her a paper with the names of those accepted into the university, including his own. She is excited to be going to the same university as him, and they both commit to working hard to graduate from school. That night, Young goes to She's house to study, but her father is watching them closely. Having seen them together before at the competition, he monitors them and frequently checks to make sure they're studying. As graduation exams approach, students are stressed and anxious about getting into their desired universities. During a break, a student offers magical chewing gum, claiming it will help them focus better on their studies. The students believe him and take the gum. When the first exam starts, students begin to feel dizzy and weak, and she collapses. Young, who refused the gum because he didn't need it, is the only one unaffected. He takes she to the clinic and stays with her until she recovers, reassuring her that everything will be okay. Later, Young returns home and finds his mother there. He learns from her that his father is seriously ill and in the hospital, embracing him while crying and blaming him for hiding the truth about his illness. His father apologizes, explaining that he did it to help Young focus on his exams. Young stays with his father, caring for him. The next day at school, Young is affected by his father's illness and is worried about him. She tries to comfort him, assuring him that things will be okay. On the day of the final exams, everyone is focused and working hard. Suddenly, the teacher enters and informs Young that his father's condition had worsened. He has to leave the exam and rush to the hospital. There, he learns from the doctor that his father has fallen into a coma and could die at any moment. She, worried about Young, learns from his mother that he has left home and searched for him in the rain. She manages to find him in their usual spot, where he is crying. She sits beside him, trying to comfort him. When Young returns to the hospital, he learns from his mother that she knew about his father's illness and had been visiting him. He's upset that she kept this from him and argues with her, questioning why she did that. She tries to defend herself, explaining that it was his father's request for his own good. Young is hurt because he wasn't able to be with his father during this difficult time and leaves, crying. He returns home and argues with his mother for being absent all these years. His mother sees a video he recorded during his trip and feels guilty for being distant. She apologizes to Young, tells him she loves him, and asks for his forgiveness. They hug for the first time in years. Young returns to school but remains upset with she. Despite her attempts to reconcile, he ignores her. She continues to send him messages, but he doesn't reply. One day, his mother visits him, crying, and Young learns that his father had unfortunately passed away. She finds out the news and goes to his house to comfort him, but he refuses to open the door. She stands outside for a long time, hoping he will let her in, but eventually leaves. Remembering their times together and feeling heartbroken, Young, still grieving and depressed, reads the letter she left in front of his house. In it, she apologizes more than 1,000 times and expresses her sorrow. Young remains angry and unable to forgive her. The next day, she learns that Young plans to leave school and study abroad with his mother. She rushes to catch him. Seeing him with his suitcase, she asks if he is still angry with her, but he responds without looking at her and explains that he plans to continue his studies abroad. She asks him to say goodbye to her and the other students who are concerned about him. Young tells her that seeing her reminds him of his father and advises her to study hard to get into the university she dreams of. He leaves, and she stands crying, feeling betrayed by him breaking their promise to attend university together. Her friend comforts her, and she returns home, depressed in her room. However, she decides to honor Young's wish and studies hard to achieve good grades. Despite her efforts, she cannot stop thinking about him. On the last day of school, she is emotional as she says goodbye to her classmates. They express their love for her and takes photos together to keep them memories. The exam period begins, and she is nervous but remembers Young's advice. She encourages herself and answers all the questions. When the exams and the results are announced, she opens her laptop with anxiety, imagining Young by her side. She finds out that she has achieved excellent grades and been accepted into university. Overwhelmed with joy, she cries and calls out for Young, thanking him for being the reason for her success. She wishes he were there to celebrate with her. 4 years later, Young came back to the city and visits the pastry shop where he first met She. He imagines her being there and feels a deep sense of longing for her. We see She after that. She has graduated from university and achieved her dream. She is now working at a design company. Her manager tells her that an important client will be working with them on a new project. Suddenly, Young enters her office, and she is so shocked. She goes to the bathroom and washes her face to make sure she's awake, then returns to the meeting. However, she acts coldly towards Young and is upset with him because she hasn't heard from him since he left. He tries to talk to her after the meeting, but she refuses to listen and ignores him. She leaves and goes out to drink to forget, but she sees Young in front of her and thinks she's hallucinating. Exhausted, she falls asleep, but he's genuinely there and covers her with his hand to keep her from waking up. He ends up carrying her back to his place. He watches her while she's asleep, feeling sad that she won't forgive him. He wishes they could go back to how things were before. The next day, she goes back to her school and meets her old classmates. She's happy to see them, and each one of them has achieved their dream and is successful in life. There is a film being shot at the school and tells the story of the student's life at that time. They are surprised to find that the main character is Hanya. They go to greet her, and she asks She and her friends to participate in the film. They are happy and agree, and the filming begins. There is a scene similar to what happened between She and Young when he left her and went away. Young appears behind her and continues the scene with her. They both start expressing their feelings, revealing that they love each other. Young is moved and embraces her, asking her to marry him. She is surprised but ultimately agrees. Young is overjoyed, and they get closer. All the students are touched by their relationship, and they're happy that they finally got back together and can continue their lives happily. Subscribe for more.